The rhythm of war is ticking up in West Asia. Missiles and drones are flying across the Persian Gulf, targeting water desalination plants, energy sites and military hubs. The high-octane exchange of strikes has left 2 U.S. service members in Jordan killed, while 1 service member remains missing in action. Retaliating to the deadly attack, the U.S. carried out 8th consecutive wave of daily strikes. CENTCOM claimed to have hit IRGC facilities that were used to launch attacks against U.S. service members in Jordan. On the other hand, Iran has accused the United States of attacking under-construction nuclear power plant in the country's southwest. Air raid sirens were blaring at regular intervals across West Asia. In the early hours of Sunday, Iran's army said it had targeted 2 U.S. bases in Kuwait with drones in response to American attacks on Iranian territory. Bahrain's military also confirmed that its air defense confronted and intercepted and even destroyed multiple Iranian projectiles. Sirens were also heard in Jordanian capital of Amman. Both Kuwait and Bahrain host U.S. military installations, while American troops are stationed at an air base in Azaraq. These countries have borne the brunt of attacks by Iran since hostilities resumed this month. Earlier, Kuwait accused Iran of attacking civilian infrastructure, including a power and water plant. The message from the top leadership is stoking fear of further escalation. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has vowed to teach an unforgettable lesson to the U.S. In a written message, he said violation of the ceasefire has shown worthlessness of the American president's signature. Speaking to a Iranian news broadcaster, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi revealed a part of his conversation with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. He claimed to have asked Witkoff if he has ever been in a meeting where there was a possibility of war. He said Iranians cannot be threatened and the country's uranium is not for sale. The deaths of 2 U.S. service members in Jordan have heightened fears of a return to all-out war. Earlier, President Trump warned to resume full-scale war if any U.S. military members were killed. In the latest response, the president called deaths of U.S. servicemen a very sad thing, but fell short of providing any details on how the U.S. would react to it. But the U.S. president is already pressing for more sanctions on Iran. Writing on Truth Social, the president said Republicans should add Iran to the Russian sanctions bill. He added that that's what late Lindsey Graham wanted to do, and it's going to happen. According to a report by Reuters, Iran has asked Yemen-based Houthis to block Bab al-Mandeb Strait if the U.S. launches attacks on Iran's power stations. Any threat to the Red Sea and its Bab al-Mandeb gateway will choke trade through the Suez Canal. In a sign of escalating tensions in the region, the Houthis fired missiles at Saudi Arabia after accusing the kingdom of bombing an airport under their control. The attack broke a 4-year truce in the conflict between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis. The U.S. launched first strikes on Iran on June 26th after Iran attacked commercial vessels defying its authority in the Strait of Hormuz. What started as a response to attacks on commercial vessels in the Strait has now turned into a large-scale confrontation between the U.S. and Iran. Well, joining us live from Wicklow, Ireland is Mr. Scott Lucas. He's a professor of international politics at the Clinton Institute, University College, Dublin. Professor Lucas, thanks for your time and thank you very much for joining us at this hour. The U.S. military says it avenged the deaths of their soldiers in Jordan. CENTCOM also says they're trying to weaken Iran's ability over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, on its part, at least from the foreign minister, who says Iran is not like Venezuela. You cannot threaten us or you cannot buy us. Your reaction?
As we're in what is now more than a week of this latest escalation, that fundamental issue that has caused this escalation, and indeed others, since we supposedly had a ceasefire in April, has been control of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran still controls that waterway. The Trump administration want to break the grip on that waterway. The problem is that they committed in the memorandum of understanding to Iranian management, even if there were to be no tolls or fees over the next 60 days. So how do you break that Iranian management? The Americans were supporting vessels trying to leave the strait along the Omani coast without getting Iranian permission. When the Iranians fire on those vessels, then the U.S. fires on Iran, starting with military sites, but now non-military targets. Then the Iranians retaliate by hitting Gulf states, as you have been describing. And the issue here is that while the previous cycles of violence between the two countries lasted about 2 to 3 days at most, we're now into a second week, and that's why you're getting this increasing intensity. So what you have is not that either side says we're going to go back to war, but you may slowly ratchet yourself back up to war step by step, especially because we have now a breakdown in negotiations. I think both sides are effectively saying that any talks on the memorandum of understanding are gone, at least for the near future.
Professor Lucas, let's break down the foreign minister's statements to the Iranian media. Araghchi says America fell into another miscalculation after the 12-day war. They had not taken this resistance into account. We will never surrender, whether to the United States or Israel. What's the messaging here?
Well, the Iranian regime is always going to be defiant. They're always going to beat their chest and say that they're winning this. I think if you get through the rhetoric, however, a couple of things do resonate. The first here is that the Americans initially wanted regime change. They were prodded by the Israelis to think they could get that with the killing of the Supreme Leader. They very quickly realized they couldn't, but then they wanted regime surrender. And that is, accept our terms on the strait, accept our terms on the nuclear program, accept our terms on the regional position. And Araghchi is restating, we don't accept your terms. Specifically beyond that, as you mentioned a bit earlier, he emphasized we will continue to enrich. We have a right to our nuclear program. And I think that is a specific statement, which is we're not going to undo the memorandum of understanding, because the memorandum of understanding made clear that the Strait of Hormuz was the priority in the first stage of talks. Only then would Iran discuss its nuclear program. And what Araghchi is saying to the Americans is, implicitly, you agreed to negotiate on the basis of this. You cannot undo this now and try to set a different agenda. Iran is setting the terms for the political discussion.
Professor Lucas, I'll have to correct you there. You said Russians. I think in the midst of the statement you meant Iran, but that's okay. That's okay. Thank you very much for your time and for talking to us today.
Thank you for keeping me straight. Best to your viewers.